Hi, this is Jerry Ball, and you're listening to The Grueling Truth.
Welcome to The Grueling Truth Show, The Real Deal. I'm your host, Josh Benjamin. This week we are going to talk about sportsmanship, and the past 7-8 weeks of our shows, we've always talked about something around sports, and all of those really have evolved to be around sportsmanship. And this week I have a familiar voice. His name is Mike Goodpaster. He is the founder and co-owner of the Grueling Truth Show radio show. He has coached football for 25 years, which is almost my whole life, and is also the #1 ranked private coach in the Midwest. And he'll provide some great insight for our listeners out there on sportsmanship. Mike, welcome.
Well, thanks for making me sound old, Josh. I appreciate it.
Hey, anything I can do for you, just let me know.
Well, that's not one of those things, but all right.
Well, each week we've talked to several different coaches and different people around sports, and we never really got a chance to talk about sportsmanship, and I figured this would be a good opportunity to do so. And, you know, in your definition, Mike, what is the definition of sportsmanship?
Sportsmanship to me is basically respecting the people you're going to play, the game you play, and at the end, shaking hands. I mean, you play as hard as you can. And another definition of sportsmanship is not when you're on just the winning side or the losing side. It goes both ways. And, you know, I've seen a lot of people that will get mad at an umpire and then have bad sportsmanship towards the other team.
Yeah, and, you know, kind of my definition to go along with that, the first thing I think of is respect right away, and that's for coaches, parents, players, officials, everyone involved. You need to respect each other to understand it is a game, and we're going to be competitive, but we're also going to be respectful to everyone that's a part of it. So, yeah, that's in a nutshell. Sportsmanship is essentially respect, and I couldn't agree more. Previously, in the last few weeks, I've been listening to some radio shows, and they've talked about some unwritten rules in sports. And I'm not sure some of these unwritten rules are what's the word I'm looking for, able to be used, because I don't know about the unwritten rule scapegoat, I guess, with certain things such as bat flips, you know, standing over a ball carrier after you just tackle them, you know, waving your finger after a blocked shot, you know, a touchdown dance, whatever the case may be. You know, Mike, what are some unwritten rules in sports that come to mind, and do you agree with them?
Well, I can tell you this. If I don't want somebody to celebrate, if I beat them, that usually takes care of that problem. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think this. I think if somebody makes a big play and they're excited about a big play, that's one thing. And if they want to celebrate, I don't really care. But if you're doing it to degrade your opponent, then I have a problem with it.
Yeah. Yeah, and some of these come out of just pure emotion of how excited they were. For example, the bat flip with Jose Bautista last year at the end of baseball season, people are still talking about that and talking about how it was bad sportsmanship, and then some other people on the other side are talking and saying, you know, it's out of pure emotion. He was excited, which I kind of agree with, and I kind of have the same philosophy as you in the case of if you know, if you don't want them to dance, you don't have a touchdown dance, you don't want them to wave their finger in front of you, you know, don't let them do it. Don't let them score. Don't let them have that opportunity to do so. And, you know, what are your opinions of unwritten rules in general, Mike?
Well, I think this. If it's unwritten, it's not a rule. If you can't go to a rule book and show me it, I don't see how it could stand anyways. That's basically unwritten rules are for people to, you know, come across somebody that does something they don't like. It's just they don't like it. It hurts their feelings. They want it to be an unwritten rule. But it obviously isn't important enough to be a written rule, so just be quiet and grow up. I mean, the biggest problem with this world today is everybody's worried about everybody else's feelings. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what I said. You go play the game as hard as you can, and when the game's over, you shake hands. You know, if something happens in between there, it's in the middle of the game, it's the heat of the moment, you got to be able to forget it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that, and that happens all the time. And I think not only players, but, you know, coaches especially need to understand the heat of the moment and understand the emotion and being able to sustain that, because, you know, essentially you're the role model. Going to that, being a coach or a parent, how can you exhibit sportsmanship?
How can you exhibit sport? Well, just the way you act. I mean, if you're a parent and you're sitting behind home plate and your son's pitching or your son's at bat, you're screaming at the umpire, that's going to lead to the kids doing that. If you're a coach, if you're going nuts at the umpire or, the referee, the kids are going to do that. I mean, all this stuff starts from one person basically making an ass out of themselves, and then all these impressionable kids think, well, hey, he's allowed to do it, so he's not going to care if I do it, and it must be all right for me to do it.
Yes, and essentially the bottom line is don't be a jerk. Understand, going back to understanding what we're doing here. What are we doing? We're playing a game. We're competing. We're being respectful, going back to that sportsmanship phrase we're talking about, and just understanding that people are watching you, old, young, same age, and they're going to act probably like you because you are the person in charge. If you're the coach, if you're a player, your peers are going to see that, and if you're a parent, your coach is going to see that, and so is your son or daughter, and you don't want them to be in a negative the negative light. So
well, and as a good coach, I believe this. I mean, I don't even talk to my teams about sportsmanship, whether they're 28 and used to play football at Ohio State, or whether it's my son's 15-year-old select baseball team, because of this. I don't have to talk to them about it because they're going to act the way I do. I mean, 90% of the time, especially with a good coach, the team is going to take on the coach's personality.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And the fact that you don't have to do that speaks volumes for not only you but other coaches out there, Mike, that understand it doesn't need to be talked about, and they're going to absolutely take on your persona and utilize that in their games and practices.
Well, and the thing with me is this. I will get on a referee. Anybody that went to the Bank of Kentucky Center and watched the River Monsters play 2 years ago, I will be in a ref's ass. But once that play is over with, I realize that very rarely is a referee out to get me.
Yeah.
And, I mean, if I get on a ref, I mean, the next thing you know, we're shaking hands and everything's fine again because I want my team to see that, that's over with. I had my dispute with him. It's over and done with.
And that's a great point because there are coaches out there. It may be true, I don't know, but there's coaches out there that act that way and then don't shake hands, don't communicate and say, hey, we're good, and understand that that's just part of the game. And some of those officials, and I'm not saying every official because I've been an official before, and some officials are out to get teams for whatever reason, whether they know them from previously or whatnot. But those really good officials, in which we'll probably have a topic on officiating coming up soon, but they're not out. They're out for the love of the game. They're out to make sure the game's played the right way and by the rules. But yeah, that's a great point when you do those things and understand, hey, I'm showing my players this is how it's supposed to be done, which is pretty important. So,
well, and the other problem is this. You'll get a lot of guys that if they lose a game, you go listen to him talk to the team. You listen to the team afterwards. We lost because of the officiating. I have very rarely seen any game decided by officiating. Now, it has happened a time or two, but, I mean, if you sit there and you use the umpire as an excuse, then your kids lose the fact of why they lost the game. I mean, they didn't play well. I mean, if an official does cost you a game, chances are there was stuff you could have done earlier in that game that would have kept it from coming to that situation.
That's funny you say that because I coached an 8th grade boys basketball team a few years back, and they noticed so-called bad calls, and they were complaining about them, and that had to have been ingrained from them from either previous coaches or parents. And I stopped that right away and said, listen, we could point at each other and say, what did I do wrong in each play? And a lot of people do things wrong in each play, or the whole game for that matter. And to understand that one call or two calls, whatever the case may be, determines the game is pretty rare, like you said. So that's pretty important to establish that early and often.
Yeah, and the other thing you get, a perfect example, like I said, I coach my son's 15-year-old select baseball team. I've seen you get referee or umpires that will have strike zones that, don't give you a strike at the knees. and you got kids that throw strikes there all the time. All of a sudden, they're called balls. The next thing you know, they're so worried about what the umpire's done that they forgot they're supposed to even pitch, and before you know it, they walk 5 or 6 guys, and they're out of the game.
Yeah, takes them mentally out of the game. Absolutely. Yeah. I've seen that in slow pitch softball, whether it was a pitcher, whether it was even a batter getting a strike called on. They just totally forget what they're supposed to be doing, what their focus is on, instead of thinking about what the umpire just called or called before. I was actually getting ready to ask you to give the listeners a time in which you witnessed bad sportsmanship. Is there a time that comes out to mind that automatically?
I'll tell you, the worst sportsmanship I've ever exhibited, I had nothing to do with the game. I was just watching it. It was actually in Aurora, Indiana. There was a peewee football game that for some reason I just stopped and I was watching it. Lawrenceburg was playing South Dearborn, Aurora, whatever you want to call them. It's a big rivalry. Lawrenceburg was supposed to win, but they're getting their butts kicked. There's like 10 seconds left in the game. The Aurora team's taking a knee. The Lawrenceburg team calls timeout. So we know nothing's going to good come of that anyways. It's second down. The game's over. So they come up, and as soon as the quarterback starts to call his cadence for the South Dearborn team, the Lawrenceburg kid launches himself, like 3 of them, launched herself over the center and take out the quarterback.
Oh, my gosh.
And the quarterback ended up, I believe, broke his collarbone or his arm.
Wow.
That is the worst case of sportsmanship I've ever seen.
That is unbelievable. You said it was a youth football game?
Yep, 1990. It was either 91 or 92. It was a youth football game. I think it was like maybe an 11 or 12-year-old, probably a 5th, 6th grade team.
Unbelievable.
And the bad thing is, the coaches that coached there continued to coach there. And I think the 2 leagues broke off, and they got away from each other, didn't play each other for like 6 or 7 years. But I know a lot of the guys had the same thing to do. Would have been the next thing I saw, which was a joke, was also from Lawrenceburg, was they had a coach. I'm not going to bring his name up here. Hopefully he'll listen, because this was one of the more pathetic things I've ever seen. But he had a kid that was a running back in the 6th grade that was enormous. He just barely made weight, but he was like 6'1", 150 pounds, and you had to be under 150 pounds to run the ball. They go undefeated, beat everybody to death all year. They're getting ready to come into the playoffs. At the start of the playoffs, you're allowed to weigh in like 3 or 4 players. So they weighed this kid in. And the kid, who was supposed to weigh 150 or less, weighed like 160, 165. So now he's only allowed to play offensive line. So this coach, who is a moron, I would love to say his name, but anybody in Lawrenceburg knows who he is, and probably South Dearborn also. But he brings the kid out before they play their playoff game. The team walks out on the field, and he has the kid in handcuffs to show how, they're being, his hands are being tied.
Oh, my God.
And they're like the 1 seed. They haven't been scored on all year. They play an 8 seed, I think, from Milan, which is a small town. And Milan came out and just cleaned their clocks like 14-0. But he actually brought the kid out in handcuffs.
Wow, that's selfish. That's ridiculous.
That's bad sportsmanship. That was a coach
terrible.
That actually coached to make himself look good.
Terrible. That guy's in for it for the wrong reason. I hope he's not coaching anymore, but if he is.
No, he's not.
Oh, man. Wow. I could not top any of those.
But I can tell you this. He coached for like 15 or 20 years down there, Pee Wee kids.
Wow. Man, that is.
But also, the other thing I can also give you is I'm pretty sure that he became the president of the Youth Association down there and then got busted for stealing money from it.
Even better. Good always wins. That's
but they're all still friends, so what the hell?
Wow.
My kids don't go to Lawrenceburg anymore, by the way. Or
good for you.
Reasons.
Yeah. Well, I was going to give my take on time I've witnessed bad sportsmanship. Mine's definitely not going to top yours, but
as you said, though, I've coached as long as you've been alive, so I've seen a few more things.
Pretty close, yeah, you're right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
But I witnessed. Well, I was the actual official. I was the umpire, and there was a call at second base. I made a call, and to this day, I'm still correct on that call. And not that I'm a perfect umpire or official anyway, but
I've
I
never
made the
met a good
call
one,
there.
so you couldn't be perfect.
That's true. If anybody knows me, they know that I'm not perfect by any means. But the person I was screaming was not even a part of either team. They were just sitting there watching the game. And this is adult slow pitch softball, and this is a league night, which pretty much means nothing unless you don't have a life, and that's all you play for is that T-shirt in the league. But anyway, they were screaming and hollering about the call. And first of all, the team in the field was down 19-0, and the call was against them. And they I don't know what exactly happened after that, besides the fact that they quit. They stopped the game. They said we're done. We quit. And it was all because of someone not even associated with either team said that was a ridiculous call. They said they had some choice words, and I pretty much ignored them, and they weren't happy about that. And so there were kids out there listening to the choice words that person had to say, and I was pretty. I was afraid for the kids to see such behavior by an older person, and which was ridiculous. But mine definitely doesn't top your two at all. But
luckily anymore, kids see that kind of behavior by all kind of adults, so it probably doesn't even affect them to see it in the game.
Right, exactly. They either see it on TV, they see it, right there, right next to them, or
hell,
or
you just watch the two people running for president and get a bad example of it.
Oh man, that's a totally different topic that we could talk about for a long time. But I digress on that. Now this is a question that we both need to be honest with, and I'll tell you mine. But have you ever not been a good sport?
Oh yeah, I have. I've been a not good sport before.
Can you tell us a time, or would you rather just say yeah?
Oh, I could tell you a time.
Give us a time.
All right. I coached a football team, junior high team. Mm-hmm. This would have been. We played in, let's see, it would have been late 90s. But we played a team the first year I was there. Our team was not that good. There weren't many facilities there. They hadn't had a winning season in like 12 years. We come out and play a team that junior high-wise hadn't lost a game in like 5 or 6 years. It was Indian Hill. They beat us 56-0, and the 56-0 included 2 halfback passes to make it 49-0 and 56-0. So to make a long story short, each year we got closer to beating them, and then by year 4 we beat them like 74-0, and I used all 3 timeouts to get the ball back.
Yes,
in my eyes, that's not bad sportsmanship. In my eyes, they ran the score up on my team, so I ran the score up on his. I know, but the bad sportsmanship to me is this: none of the kids on that team were the same kids.
Yeah.
But I still feel pretty good about it, though. That's the bad thing.
Well, at least you admit it. That's part of it. That's funny.
Yeah.
When it's not the same kids, it's a little bit different. But yeah.
It was the same
coach, though, right?
Coach, though.
Yeah, that's important.
And they did it all the time for like 5 or 6 years without losing a game. So I didn't feel too bad about it, and every coach in our league enjoyed it. So.
I feel pretty good about that too if I were you.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me. I know it's bad sportsmanship, but that's all right.
Yeah, it happens sometimes.
I
go back to the. What's
we're
that?
not all perfect.
That's exactly what I was getting ready to say. Is we're not all perfect, so it's okay. The time that I was going to talk about, and it's very small. It was a recreational basketball league probably 4 years ago, and we were in a championship game, and we weren't supposed to be there. And all of us are probably 6 foot or smaller, and the team we were playing was 6'2" or taller, and we thought the officials were on their side, and the whole game, like they gave us a technical foul for dunking before the rec basketball game. It wasn't me dunking, by the way. It was a buddy of mine, but they gave us a technical foul. That's
Josh, I know it wasn't you dunking, but I guess everybody else doesn't know your frame. But go ahead.
Yeah, they don't, and that's why I'm on. That's why I'm on here. I'm not live somewhere or being seen because I take up most of the picture. But anyway, I told the ref, I plainly said that you were horrible. And I didn't say it in that tone, but I said it in a competitive manner, and they teed me up. And it's not why we lost the game, but we did lose by 2 later on. But, I got emotional, and I was pretty upset. And actually my team was pretty surprised by me doing that. But anyway. I think all of us could say that we've been.
I didn't know we were counting when we played because I got kicked out of a church league men's basketball game when I was like 19.
Nice. That's well. It was very similar.
Is what they said, but I only think profanity is when you use the Lord's name in vain. They had a different opinion of profanity, though.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I agree with you. Kind of summarize and wrap up this discussion about sportsmanship, and we've talked a little bit about it prior to this question, but how does sportsmanship play a role for the future of student athletes?
Well, I think the sportsmanship comes from the parents and the coaches. And I think the deterioration of sportsmanship has a lot to do with the deterioration of society as in a whole. I mean, when I was younger, which would have been 70s, 80s, I mean, most kids had at least one parent at home with them all the time also.
That's true.
So I think what you see on TV, what you hear from other people, all affects the way your sportsmanship is. I mean, it's glorified on TV when guys get in a fight during a game.
Yeah.
You know, you might have some guys, they should be suspended, but, it'll show it 5,000 times.
And you can see it anywhere because it's on every media outlet, so they just keep rewatching it.
Yeah, and I think that anymore the problem is, and why the sportsmanship's so bad, is because most kids don't have a whole lot of guidance at home, and then they go play for a select team that, that coach, let's face it, a lot of select coaches are just in it to make themselves look good. A lot of high school coaches are in it to make themselves look good, don't put the kids first. And if you end up in a place where they don't put the kids first, you've got a problem. I mean, I think the perfect example of a coach in the area we live, which is southeastern Indiana, that does put the kids first or did would be Coach Hebner in Batesville.
Yeah, yep. I had him on a couple weeks ago about coaching, but yeah, I would say him for sure in this area, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, I could give you a couple in this area that aren't, but I'll let that go.
Yeah, we try to leave those names out because
I'll let you talk about that since you're the host.
Okay. Well, the role that sportsmanship plays in my eyes is it gives the demeanor, the attitude, and probably the proper emotion that should be given in good or bad times. And in my opinion, I think being calm as possible is probably the best way to be. But going back to our imperfect humans, we're not perfect, and so that happens. I may raise my voice or get excited about a good play or a bad play, but I do think all of us, including myself, need to try our hardest to step back out of the situation. Literally, anytime an emotional situation happens in sports, I try to step back literally and think about what's the best way to approach the situation, good or bad. But people handle things differently, and so, but going back to that role, I think going back to what you said about having one parent at home and how the kid's raised, I think sportsmanship goes back to exactly that and then some. And so I couldn't agree with you more about that aspect of that role, but I think that prepares you for life, for your job, for maybe after high school education and things like that. So yeah, I think it plays an important role in youth development as you get older. So
well, heck, you can go on YouTube right now, Josh, and find 50 videos of people at work to go off on their bosses and get fired. It's the same damn thing.
And it's ridiculous that, one, people are recording those, and two, that people actually think it's okay to act like that, like they're entitled to be able to do that. I just found this, it was funny, we're talking about entitlement a little bit. I found this thing on Facebook. It was a picture of a notepad, a plain notepad, nothing on it, and it said, these are the things that everyone's entitled to, and nothing on the paper. And so absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, but when you've got like 100 million out of 340 million people on some kind of public assistance, that's what happens. You get people that think stuff's entitled to them, or they're entitled to stuff.
That's true. And see how sports relate to life and how it bounces from politics to raising your child and things like that. I think people need to understand that sports is all about being a good person and handling life situations. So
yeah, and the bad thing is sports 30 years ago was about a reprieve from actually dealing with real life stuff. Mm-hmm. You'd watch a game to forget about crap like that. You'd go to a game to forget about it. You'd go out and play a game as a kid to forget about all the crap at school or whatever. But anymore, everything kind of filters over into everything else.
Yep, I absolutely. I see it all the time on Twitter and Facebook and those things that People, send threats to a kicker missing a field goal like it's the end of the world, or the guy dropping a pass or missing a free throw or whatever it is. Like you said, yeah, absolutely. People used to get away from life to go watch sports, but now it seems to be.
Well, I think with reality TV, a lot of times people everything is so desensitized now because of stuff like that. I mean, I don't think people realize when they're watching Mike Nugent kick a field goal when he misses it, I don't think that they realize that he even has a wife, and kids, and a life.
No, I don't think they do at all. I agree with you. It's sad that people stoop to that level and act that way, and they don't understand. It's going back to probably how they were raised or how they were taught to approach the game in sportsmanship. So, wow.
Well, anymore, even if you're raised right, you see so much other stuff through news, sports, TV, all that, the internet, that it just desensitizes everybody to everything.
Yeah, I think the technology piece, and then what I try not – I rarely watch the news because it's all negative anyway, whatever it is, at least in my opinion. And, yeah, you're absolutely right with the technology piece and people, being able to see it and saving it on their phone and showing it to people or sharing it or whatever it is. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that.
Yeah, with the news, they're only telling you what they want us to hear anyways.
Exactly.
Everybody has an agenda nowadays.
Unfortunately, that's the case. Yeah, we need to have more good-hearted people out there, especially coaches and parents, because they kind of, in my opinion, rule the world almost when it comes to behavior and how kids raise. So, well, Mike, it's been awesome. Thanks for coming on again. Just a reminder to our listeners out there to check out our website, thegruelingtruth.net. You can find us on a bunch of media outlets such as Stitcher, Spreaker, Google Music, iTunes, and now iHeartRadio. And you can use the search phrase Grueling Truth to listen to all our shows anytime you like. For my guest, Mike Goodpaster, this is your host, Josh Benjamin, for The Real Deal. Thanks for listening to The Real Deal on The Grueling Truth. Until next time, be real with what you say.